It's a beautiful bacon day, Cookie Crusaders. Today we're going to be talking about Captain Caviar and some changes that I was not honestly expecting was going to work, but I still had to try anyway, and I'm actually really glad I did. So, you know the Red Velvet Dragon, you know the classic strategy, having dark chocolate, having the slingshot, that way you can put together a team that will do damage and it will lower the defenses. So here's the interesting part. There's a couple ways to kind of build it. The way I did it is with Poison Team and Caviar, and I'll explain that in a second. Another way was Caviar and Dark Chocolate, but not using the Slingshot, but rather using something else. And it was the Insignia, specifically. And another way I did it was using the oyster and crunchy chip. So there was a few different builds and combinations. This one seems to do the best, at least for lower levels. So, and I'll show you how. So for instance, if we go with the traditional team, the current team that works really well against almost all the levels, we go down to level 9, which is about the last point that I can do really good damage. And that's just because of my toppings. If I had better toppings, I'm sure I could do good damage for a little bit higher levels. So this is nothing like crazy impressive, but yet again, just show you comparisons. So, regular timing as always. We get up to the boss banner. Claire, DC, AFO, Vampire. And then we just let it speed up and go. And let the team do its thing. And you should see about 35 to 40 million depending. And we do even have damage resistance on a Claire here. So it's not that we're not protecting him, but regardless, it's just the setup itself is not strong enough to keep a Claire alive. And if we could, I'm sure we could do much more damage, but we'd need like double the damage resistance that we currently have on a Claire, which I think is 30%. And I think the max we can get is like 51%. So really, it's hard to do too much higher without having really perfect almonds. And so our cookies survive. We do 46 million damage. That is thanks to a Claire, buffing Affogato, and also buffing Vampire Cookie. So, Vampire's crits do matter a lot in this setup, but regardless, I still want to show you the other setup as well. So, if we're running Poison, and I'm still tweaking around with this, there's still potentially some other ways to run this, but here's the fun part. So we do the same timing, let it get up to this point here, run Cotton for protection, we run the Poison users, and then Caviar, and then just go crazy with the heals. Caviar is not only lowering the defense of the Red Velvet Dragon, but also the minions that are being summoned too, and you can see that poison's just absolutely eating away at the boss. Now, as far as our cookies surviving, sometimes not, really just depends on the skill order possession and your timing. As you can see, this time we did not have our cookies survive, but overall, Vampire is still just doing tremendous levels of damage, and the poison's still ticking away, making huge impacts. And 36 million. So, as you can see, it's not dealing as much as the Eclair setup, but if you can make this work as well with Eclair in place of another cookie. But the problem is that when you're running Eclair without proper protection, then you're getting an instance where you're kind of having Eclair off himself in a strange way because of the damage reflection. So if we go with Eclair instead of Mushroom, because Mushroom's still really good, Mushroom does really good poison damage, but if we run Eclair instead, then what you're going to see is something like this. And so as you can see, Caviar died very quickly because of the damage reflection happening. So we get less chances to do the defense reduction on the enemy team because of that. Leaves our team a little bit more exposed too. We're still getting the weakness from Eclair, but we're not able to actually push the rest of the team further with the defense reduction. And so that's pretty impactful in a lot of different ways. Granted, we're still doing great damage, but we can't do nearly as much as the other two setups because we don't have that full defense reduction like we were. Granted, if we had better toppings, maybe we could contend in a better way, but I just wanted to show you some different combinations. And so here's where it gets really interesting, though. The team setup that I think works kind of for the remainder of the levels, so like you don't have to worry about which specific level you want to just do overall good damage without thinking about too much protection, is actually this setup specifically. Toppings real quick, just to go through, mostly critical and cooldown, but running attack searing on vampire. And so if we go all the way to level 20 here, actually we'll do level 9 first to show you comparisons against the other teams, and then we'll go to level 20 where we can still do damage against the Red Velvet Dragon. I think you'll be pretty surprised of how well it handles, even though it is not the traditional dark chocolate team that you're probably all very used to by now. So still level 9. Caviar has much more survivability in this position setup because being in the true middle instead of being in the front. So taking less damage, getting more options to get those defense down, giving Affogato more time to do more damage. And as you can see, we still only have 18% damage resistance on Caviar. So if we could get like 25-30% on the substats with high cooldown, I think we'd be doing even better than Dark Chocolate's doing at certain levels. But look at just how everyone's pushing through and just dealing so much damage. We don't even lose everybody in this setup because of the positions and everyone. So dealing almost 40 million. And that's not as high as Eclair, yet again, because Eclair boosts Vampire, boosts Affogato. So the better way to do it is with Eclair if you have perfect toppings, of course. I'm not even arguing that. And Dark Chocolate still is a good setup without doubt either. Caviar, I only have him at a 3-star. So he can go even higher than Dark Chocolate for sure. And I don't even have perfect toppings. I'm going to show you that real quick. The toppings that I have for Caviar right now are just 18% damage resistance and only 15% cooldown. So that's another 10% cooldown we could get and another 12% damage resistance we could get. If we get those two metrics up, Caviar could do some insanely amazing damage onto the Red Velvet Dragon, and I'm sure even get that defense reduction even quicker, which means that your team continues to rotate at optimal power without having too much issues on the Red Velvet. So let's take it up a step further though. Let's take it to level 20, where I was still able to do good results of damage with this team. So we're going to show you that real quick. Same activations as we do. And then let it go. So yet again, if you can get really good cooldown toppings on Caviar, I honestly think that Caviar can replace Dark Chocolate Cookie. But you need some really good cooldown toppings. Good cooldown, good damage resistance, preferably good attack power too. But look, 22 million damage. My Eclair team, my normal Eclair team, does about 25 million. So it's not far away. Granted, it's less damage. I'm not saying like, oh, this is the new meta. No, not yet. Not yet. Get Caviar to a high ascension level like Dark Chocolate. Get those toppings min-maxed. Get it really pushed up there to a high degree. Maybe get some better toppings on Vampire like critical toppings. Run a full crit setup. It definitely can go bigger. Even bigger. And honestly, with this specific setup, if you can get really good cooldown toppings that either have high crit or high crit toppings that have good cooldown for Cotton Cookie, you might be able to take it even further. So those are things that we're going to be experimenting with and be testing as well. But overall, the results are pretty good. For a 3-star Caviar cookie to be doing more than dark chocolate and still providing that setup for the team so that they can do great damage. It's pretty impressive, and I'm liking what's happening with it. So there's still some changes and melds and tweaks that I'm working with to try and get the full-on team setup. But I think this is one thing that Caviar is doing really good. Is just getting in there and being an option if you don't want to run dark chocolate, or if you feel that you more comfortably have stats built in the lab for bombers. Because if you're running Affogato and you don't do Caviar, now you've got 2 bombers on the team. So that means you have a better position lab-wise with those 2 cookies versus if you run dark chocolate, because then you have a charge cookie instead of a bomber. Because then you're probably not running Crunchy Chip, you're probably running Eclair, which is 2 supports. And that's fine. If that works for you, that's fine. I'm not telling you to get rid of dark chocolate. I'm not telling you that Eclair is not good anymore. I'm not saying these things. I'm just showing you that Caviar actually does really great against the Red Velvet Jerrigan. I'll be testing against Abyss to see if Caviar does anything good there. It won't be good against the Avatar because that will just get the team destroyed because of the debuffs and the Avatar's special skill. So I don't think that'll work at all. And I don't think it'll work against the Graves against the Avatar if you like manually run it too. So I'll test it for sure to see if it works, but I highly doubt that. What's your opinions though? What's your feedback? What's your thoughts? I will be testing more teams with Caviar in the PvP arena. I don't want to put out something just yet because I feel like there are a few teams that are working, but I do want to see if the meta changes, because if it does, then Caviar could run completely different to what would be expected. The teams that it's working right now, just to give you a quick glance, the teams that Caviar is working in right now without too much issues is this one, and it's a T19. So that's the team that's working with Caviar right now. But we'll cover that at another point, another video, as I want to test it more and tweak it more and figure out really what the best blend is. And yet again, having only a 3-star Caviar means that it's really hard to judge in the high Master competition. It's easy to see in the lower ranks, but in Master 2, Master 1, it's a little bit tough. So we have to judge it very carefully, but I am looking into it. Hopefully this is helpful for you for this video. There's a lot more to cover, a lot more things to discuss, and I'd love your feedback so that we can find not only what you find to be helpful, but the best teams that we can all run in the arena and in Guild Boss so that we have the most optimal experience and fun possible. Thank you for stopping by, and have a wonderful day.